Welcome to M+. We're in Hong Kong and we're about to open Hong Kong's first global museum of visual culture. And you are about to see a sneak preview of what we have in our galleries and the great facilities and resources available to all of you. We are now in the main hall, our public gathering space in the central part of the museum, a quintessential Herzog-de-Meuron space designed for M+, using the muscular structures of concrete and terracotta, internal and outside, you will see it, but also the bamboo used for our furniture right throughout the museum, very sustainable material. It is also a space where we commission artists to make work, including digital artists. And we have right behind me now an amazing patrons wall designed by Japanese digital designer, very eminent, Nakamura Yugo-san. Another important architectural feature of the main hall are the two light wells that sit on either side of the tower, bringing beautiful natural light right into this large open space. But we also use the structural columns for our artwork commissions. And right now you can see the magnificent paintings made by Taiwanese ink artist, senior artist Dong Yan-tse, inspired by the I Ching. I'm standing in the center of the main hall. And as you can see, there is a major, beautiful aperture, a cutaway that brings in the natural light from the light wells all the way down through to the found space. The found space is named because it was a space that was found by the architects when they were preparing the museum, because the metro lines, the two lines for the Tung Chung line and the Airport Expressway, go diagonally through the museum. And this concrete shelf covers those tunnels. The first exhibition spaces that our audiences will encounter here on the main hall is the main hall gallery. And we decided that we would fill it with our Hong Kong collection. So as you can see, Hong Kong Here and Beyond is the title of this exhibition as we walk through a set of doors and encounter the first work of art, another set of doors, emblematic of welcoming you all into the space. The work is by King of Kowloon, the great calligrapher, who used the spaces of Hong Kong as his canvas and would spontaneously make work across the city. M+ commissioned the Hong Kong architect and designer Gary Chan to make a one-to-one model of his home, his flat, and domestic transformer is the result. In a very tight space, 34 square meters, very familiar to all of us who live in Hong Kong, these tight spaces really improve with very good design. Movable walls that allow the space to expand and contract as needed. His bed, his kitchen, his television, his bath. Behind me, you can see the exact replica of the view from his window. Welcome to the M+ Learning Hub. We've moved from the grand, open, cathedral-like space of the main hall right into the intimacy of a house of learning. Learning, of course, takes place right throughout the museum, but in the Learning Hub, our principle for learning is experimentation, play, and activity. It's a dynamic space working with artists, architects, designers as our teachers, and with a philosophy of lifelong learning from young all the way through. Importantly for us, the Learning Hub is also a space of movement, of the ability to be very open-ended and experimental with workshops, wet spaces, but also the ability to do multiple languages. The forum space, of course, is an incredible space, and you will see the view out into Hong Kong as well as being one of the revelations and the gifts of learning in our particular architecture here at the Learning Hub. At the base of our conservation and storage facility is a display area, which is open display, a working space of conservation and exhibition making for public to view from the outside. It is a working space, it is a research space, it will be a place where workshops will take place, where research is understood and applied to conservation. And we will open with looking at our neon signs, a very important part of our Hong Kong visual culture collections that need a lot of conservation work. And you will be able to see what that means over a period of a year.
Welcome to the second floor. This is where most of our 33 galleries are located. It is a radically horizontal space. It runs 110 meters this way, 130 meters this way, which is equivalent to 2 football fields put together. I'm standing in the central atrium. From here, our audiences will be directed to 4 quadrants. There's West Gallery, North Galleries, also known as the SIG Galleries, our South Galleries, and East Galleries. They range from 1,500 to 2,500 square meters and laid out in different configurations. In SIG Galleries, we have From Revolution to Globalization, our first presentation from the M+SIG collection of Chinese contemporary art. Behind me in East Galleries, we have Things, Spaces, Interactions, showcasing our international design and architecture collection. South Galleries is showing Individuals, Networks, Expressions, highlighting our international visual art collection. Now I'm entering West Gallery, which is showing the most monumental work from the M+ collection, and that's Asian Field by Anthony Gomli. Gomli came to China in 2003 to realize a dream project. He found a village in Guangdong province and worked with 300 villagers to create over 200,000 clay figurines in the span of 1 week. This is the first time that this work is shown since 2003. We worked very closely with a group of about 20 art students to install this work over 3 weeks. Our audiences can stand in front of this sea of figurines, and that experience is like facing the whole of humanity. I'm standing in the Grand Stair, one of the most extraordinary features of this iconic building. It's an open auditorium that can sit up to 400 people. And as you can see behind me, it is equipped with a large LED screen. It measures 5 meters high, 10 meters across, and it's on a hoisting structure that positions the screen high up, like as it is now in a cinematic mode, or it can be lower, closer to the floor in a lecture mode with the curtains drawn. Under the Grand Stair are our 3 cinema houses that can seat 180, 60, and 40 people. And these cinema houses are also equipped with various formats, including 35 millimeters, 16 millimeters, and digital. Under the Grand Stair is Mediatek, our library of the museum's moving image collection. It has the capacity of 40. It's equipped with booths for single viewing as well as seats for multiple people. And this is where you can watch our moving image collection on demand. We're in the Courtyard Galleries, which are one of the unique spaces in the M+ building. As you can see, these galleries are cladded completely in bamboo on the floors, on the walls, and on the ceilings. For the inauguration, what we decided to do is to make a jewel box-like exhibition that is a self-reflection on the significance of building a 21st century global museum in and for Asia. And we wanted to tell this story through the conceptual practices within the M+ collection. In the first gallery, we have 4 foundational figures who are Marcel Duchamp, John Cage, Namjoon Paik, and Yoko Ono. These 4 figures had very close personal as well as professional relationships, and altogether they formed and represented the East-West connection and is at the core of this exhibition. As we walk into the next gallery, we see a broader constellation of practices from more different contexts and times and geographies. In the first space, as you walk in, you may think that you have entered a space of traditional Asian art. But in fact, each of these works, each of these practices is very much rooted in the foundational conceptual ideas of chance and ready-made. As we walk into the next space, we see some other examples of conceptual practices. For instance, we see another work by Yoko Ono, which is a white chess set, an homage to none other than John Cage, a very important mentor as well as a friend to the artist herself. This work is resonating with a performative work by Morimura Yasumasa, where the artist is recreating performatively the historic event where Marcel Duchamp played the chess with a nude young woman. We also have an example of 1987 work by Hwang Yong-ping in those dawn years of Chinese contemporary art, where he created a work that was inspired by and is also an homage to none other than Marcel Duchamp. In the rest of the galleries, we have even more far-flung places and practices. We have figures such as Gabriel Orozco, Ricri Tervanit, Etel Adnan, and Yambo.
Welcome to the M+ Rooftop Garden. This is a public open space and sits on top of our galleries that sit on either side of our tower. A tower that houses our LED screen, 66 meters high by 110 meters across, a program space, a space for our creative makers that we will commission. In a city full of commercial moving images, we feel absolutely committed to bringing creative content. And in a space that is full of beautiful plants and garden, while enjoying the view of Hong Kong Island, the quintessential view of Hong Kong Island from this very, very beautiful podium.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again in the second session of today's forum. So let me just quickly introduce ourselves for this session. Just now we have the opportunity to have watched the introductory video of the M+ Museum, and now we are joined by the M+ Museum Director and Curator with us today. So let me just quickly introduce. So we have the Museum Director of M+, Ms. Suhanya Raffel, and also Curator of the Hong Kong Visual Culture, Ms. Tina Kang, here with us, as well as another moderator with us, Helen from our Hong Kong Foundation. So in today's session, it will be a slightly more casual format. We'll have some free flow Q&A to discuss the opening of the M+ Museum and some of the future directions of the museum is heading to. And for now, I would first throw the very first question to our guest here, which is to introduce what is your day-to-day work and tell us all about how is it different in your day-to-day work before the museum opens and after.
I have to say, for me, it's been extremely exhilarating to work together as a team for many years to open this museum. And it's a very large museum. It's one of the largest in the world. And certainly in terms of Hong Kong, Asia, where we're devoted to thinking about our programs, our exhibitions, our collections around visual culture. And this is an important proposal. And at the same time, I think once the museum has been open now 6.5 weeks, the overwhelming public response has been for me an affirmation of all of that efforts. So the before was planning, thinking, engaging, really getting down, and we've done a lot of work with all this engagement prior to the museum opening. Because we always have this belief that our museum is more than just food. It's about content, it's about relationships, it's about audiences. And of course, when COVID came, there was a very clear direction that we could do so much of the digital platforms as well, and engage with them. And I think all of that work has really paid off because it's like watching a very plant come to life. We nourish and work on that feeding of it, watering it, it's cultivating it in that sense. It's the relationship now with audiences and content is really cultivation. For me, I walk every day this one. Once the doors are open, so that I can see on the practical level what's working, what's not, what we don't want, what's comfortable with audiences, where should we be more information or many things, while at the same time just enjoying the energy of the full of people and that relationship. It's also, for me, it was also really a team of professionals to deliver. And that with our professionals from across the areas, specifically conservation, exhibition designers, our digital team work on our websites, managing the languages that we work with to make sure our professionals who are able to bring all of that great thinking that we refer to put together, facilitated across the various platforms. So it's been fantastic to see all of that come together, and it's like a big jigsaw puzzle that's like
in one sentence, I would say that getting a very smart storyteller, telling people about the story of them.
absolutely all the time. Yes, it's an important part of the work that I do, but also something that I really.
So how about Tina?
Well, I guess my work here is very different. In a way, it's of course it's much more concentrated. And I guess if you're asking about the before and after, then the before is very, very concrete in many ways, but also very abstract. So building the collection, my position. So we have maybe 70+ people in the curator team. We're very collaborative. And my team perhaps more than others. So with the core collection areas of visual art, design and architecture and moving image. My team works across all teams, but focusing very much on Hong Kong visual culture, so the culture that we see around us. And it's really the challenge of how is that realized within a museum, within an exhibition. So, before obviously sort of thinking through how to tell that story, it's also storytelling, to tell that story through objects, and for that to be readily accessible and readily readable by our audiences. So before definitely building the collection and working on the exhibition, that's been many years' work, and also publication. But at the same time thinking about how to continue that, how do we continue that energy of visual culture? Because with my specific focus, I'm not the only person presenting Hong Kong material in Hong Kong. So there are many other museums in Hong Kong, the History Museum, the Art Museum, the Heritage Museum. We work, we're in very close conversation with them about their work. And what I do personally is contribute a different curatorial perspective to what's already available in Hong Kong. And I would say after the opening, what's been, I guess, the part that's been missing, the part that was the most abstract, was how do people respond and how do people understand what we do? And I found that to be quite challenging, to be honest, because I think that you work many years on an exhibition and to you it's very clear what you're doing. And then what we've realized is that bringing people through, it's not necessarily the case, especially because our audience is so broad. It's not a very narrow group of people that are our normal arts community. So really trying to find a way that, anyone, if they come in, they can find something that they can relate to and that adds to their understanding of the idea of visual culture, but also visual culture in the city. So the thing that I hope, there are many other colleagues who are involved in the project of doing the exhibition that we produced on Hong Kong. But what we hope is that people will leave saying, feeling proud, and also feeling that they've learned something, that they will go out into the city and to think about our built environment, to think about materials that they never really thought of as being culturally significant, and to recognize that. So it's just I'm part of a big team and we discuss a lot of the challenges of what to add to the collection and then how to communicate about the collection and how to communicate about audiences. But definitely after the opening, the big thing that was missing was how people respond to what we're doing, and that's an ongoing, actually very stimulating, very interesting and sometimes surprising process of learning how we can do better at telling the stories that we spent so many years actually putting together.
Can I just follow up on what you said, because I actually it reminds me of a kind of a very day-to-day routine. So obviously since the opening of the M+, congratulations. That it takes me. I do come visit quite often now, and usually because I work quite far away, so then on Uber or on taxi, I would say, oh, please talk to M+, and then the taxi driver would come over and would pick me up, and then as I'm approaching the entrance, they would be like, oh, so tell me about the plus. It generates some conversation, which I think is a very good thing. It actually taps onto what you said about communicating with the public and perhaps allowing them some room to think about things that wouldn't normally associate with art and culture, or how it's relevant to me. So I probably we'll get into the plus, how either of you could think about the plus mindset And also, I mean, that was just one remark, but also, as Tina, you're obviously curator to one of very brilliant, galleries in the first floor, for example, which focuses on Hong Kong visual culture. Like, was it a deliberate positioning of that gallery focusing on Hong Kong, on Hong Kong visual culture as such? It's very much the first gallery I've seen. Was it? Yeah, I was just thinking, could you tell us elaborate a little bit more about that exhibition, the story behind that, and the deliberate positioning of that gallery, and whether and anything more you can say about that.
I want to say something about us first.
Yeah.
About the power of trust all the time. I see that, and it's something that is very enabling and opens things up for us in so many ways. And that's one of the beauties of having England. There is also this institution captures it. So it's precise, it's at the same time very full of. So that plus we are always learning about that all the time. Positioning the Hong Kong exhibition in the main hall is also absolutely. Because when you look at the inaugural exhibitions, there are two exhibitions that are really rooted in geography. Galleries are all the and the sixth exhibition of urbanization is the other Chinese. So these two bookended what we needed to say in a very particular way, and then we really do need to move out from there beyond into how we actually expand what needs to be from in Asia. How does the international do that? What does it mean to bring artists from all over the world? And what is the particularity of that? And even in how that quality. How we really reflect.
Yeah. I'll add a little bit to the plus here. So I think that obviously when we were before opening, we were working for so many years with that, such an abstract concept. But in a way, towards the end of that period of preparation for the opening of the museum, you really saw what we have been doing, operating already as a museum. So with all of our online content, there are many things that you see on our website today that actually different members of the curatorial team have been working on years ago. So there are still videos on the website of research that we did 5 years ago. So it's a cumulative process, that kind of plus thing. And I think that after we've opened, there is that we will continue to do a lot of online marketing because we recognize how it can add to your physical experience also reach our international friends. For the Hong Kong exhibition, it was definitely a challenge. I mean, we felt that it was an opportunity in a single exhibition to convey the idea of visual culture, to show rather than tell. But it contains a little bit of a bit of tension too, because we didn't want to have all the participants separated out, but actually when you come to present the materials, when you break things up, you break the performances. So we ended up with, broadly speaking, a section on visual art, a section on graphic design and architecture, and but I think the tension within the exhibition is that while we normally expect to see visual art in a museum, it's also the most abstract and the most difficult material. And yet the other things that you see in kind of doing in your daily life, graphic design, branding, magazines, and television culture, film, and so on. Those are things we consume, but they're not things we necessarily expect to see. so there's such an inherent tension. And so then how do you tell it the whole story? But we thought that it was an opportunity to talk about visual culture through materials that our audiences may know best, which is related to Hong Kong. So what I've observed is that it's quite a historical exhibition because it's the foundations of the collection. So we focus very much on building up the collection from the very late 50s up to 2000s. So it's quite a historical exhibition. So there'll be many young audiences who are encountering things for the first time, and it will still have a kind of freshness or or even a distance, or a bit of distance, especially with television culture. People don't really watch television in the same way anymore. But we thought that it would be an opportunity to really, help people consider or review materials that they maybe haven't considered from a cultural perspective.
And would it be accurate to say the emphasis using visual culture or centering around visual culture is Asia's first museum, or to use vision accurate? It's the multidisciplinary nature of our institute that brings those collections of design architecture together with arts because they're the critical part of collections. And that you don't see everywhere in the world. You do see that Europe, North America, but not. And so it's very important for us to bring those stories together because they are very extraordinary creative, and they are ours, and we should be open. We should take purchase of them.
I would say in relation to the Hong Kong exhibition that it is, as Suhanya said, this kind of multidisciplinary approach offers audiences a chance to see things that, could be a situation from multiple perspectives. And this can be seen most clearly in the architecture and design section, where you really are looking at how individual artists have responded to the built environment, but then also how architects working maybe in the commercial field as well as the government have tackled certain issues such as housing, which is very issue in Hong Kong. But then you have designers' responses and then you have artistic responses. So you can really look at an issue in the round. And we focus a little bit on housing to come to us to highlight our architecture collection. But we also are able to include an ink painting by Mr. Huang, painting a very modern city, and sort of the idea of Hong Kong really being a centre for innovation in ink that was about being here and exploring through Hong Kong's own modernity.
Actually, I want to add to that because that painting is right next to the model that was commissioned, on the elevated walkways. That's right. And it's a really important juxtaposition.
The City to Background model is an elaboration of a book project that was done by the architects at Hong Kong, where they were researching on a very distinctive part of Hong Kong's urban landscape. And that's all of us will have this experience of, let's say, taking the second levels escalator and then down the hill through ISC onto the very fields. And the whole way you don't need to touch the pavement. You're covered from the rain and the sun. You go through air-conditioned spaces, but it's also the juxtaposition between private and public. So often, these ideas of public spaces are actually private spaces. They're commercial buildings. They're sort of, like we think Jardim House. The Jardim House is really the kind of ground zero for this network of bridges. And the role of development like Hong Kong Land really recognizing that situation for its tenants, to be able to move seamlessly between landmark, Alexandra House, Cheta House, onto, so this convenience for our way of living, which doesn't just exist in the center of the city, it exists in China, it exists throughout Hong Kong. And this group of architects and their students, they mapped this negative space in this book that's still available. It's called Cities Without Bounds. And we worked with them to really elaborate just the area between Sunlight and Admiralty to create this very abstract model that I'm so surprised how audiences recognize it. So when they come along and they look at it, it is quite abstract. It's 3D printed. But they start to see, oh, that's the very thing. This is how I see it. So it's super interesting. We wanted to talk about this peculiarity of the city, obviously distinctive how planners, urban planners and architects have, taken what is a constraint, which is very dense space, a lot of people, very little usable land, taken a constraint and made it a virtue.
Yeah, and that's great because I know that our audiences, a lot of our audiences are coming in from across Asia, and also those urban planning backgrounds, so that's perfect that you should have just mentioned that.
Yeah. I think we have around 900 people signing up for the event today, so that's why they come from friends all over the world. They're all very keen to know about the campus architecture, and I know that during the process, it's a really long process, but there are a lot of small things that we've discovered, obstacles maybe, but then we have overcome them and then finally built this great architecture. So coming from that perspective, I would also hope to hear some of the thoughts and your experiences during this journey.
So for us, it was a huge piece of work in relation to working with the architects and the environment. Carol's there. And they were fabulous to work with, together with our teams, to really realize what is one of the great architectures that was in the question. But some people are very well known for making these things. They worked on the table. They also worked on the renovation sites. They worked the national stage of Beijing. So they worked in the picture as well as nationally across the cultural sector. But I think for me, likewise, states not that is design just because it's very purposeful. Every aspect of the architecture reflects the impasse, the facilities, the resources that we are bringing to the city. And we were very clear that the site had to be, a museum is but also is the excavation. This is the houses, collections that are embracing the great creative energies of across the city. So it is a house, it's a spirit house. It houses culture. And so the design that we gave us responded to the site, the fact that there is an entire series of tunnels that will bisect the site, and it's still already being incorporated, and they've made it such that it becomes this wonderful space from the city all the way down to the ground space, but providing display spaces, public spaces, public interaction spaces, as much as very formal gallery spaces for us to work with in the most inspired. And that also includes the house for the public open spaces, the gardens on the podium. The fact that as an institution where we think one of our key disciplines, tower houses so we can embody it as well, literally, as the institution faces on the island. So it's a very, very fun piece of design, and I think it was also a very productive conversation between the institution and our operational staff with the architects to arrive at something extraordinary. Yeah.
And I think we talk a lot about the space within M+, but I think M+ is situated in the West Kowloon district not because, like, it's not a coincidence, right? It has to interact with other, like, buildings and infrastructure in this cultural district. So, Suhanya, what is your vision of, like, continuing this and growing this West Kowloon cultural district into a really vibrant place where not just visitors coming in, but also artists coming in, producing more artwork and inspiring them to continue to generate the arts and culture?
I mean, it's also wonderful because this cultural district also as part of its mandate, the art park is sitting right next to us. We also have our performing arts colleagues who are working in free spaces, really coming up right next to us. And Palace Museum. Yeah. So the fact that there is this park that is an art park that is also houses all of these institutions immediately says that there is very interesting stories. And we will explore that. There are exhibition for communities in works at Vivian, which was called the Vivian on the side. It's more undercover space too. And we do the exhibition. Let's see how we do out of our collections to explore what is needed for us. And part of that was about aesthetics, but also working with the dance curator our colleagues from arts to bring together movements what was as a way of soundscape that you walk with while going between. So this exploration, this expansion of the experience is immediately becomes more the power of us. I would like to say is that we have colleagues in the district that we work with to enhance our open programs work with them. It's not combined, it's a relationship that we know is established relationship with the these are things that we need to develop and amplify because we have the privilege of being in terms of cultural culture. This is that has really grown so substantially. Last 5 years, last 10 years, it's extraordinary to see that the ecology has become substantial, complex, and rich. So, of course, for us, we see we are able to that ecology. We are bringing out to bring the world alternative.
I really love the collaborative spirit that you were describing. Right? Did you have anything to add?
I would just say from the experiential side, I think that obviously there's the hardware and the software. But what I'm hoping, there's no space like West End. So this for people to just have a space where they can come and they can play and experience things that they can't experience anywhere else. I think it's really that kind of experience which will sustain the life of the district.
Could I ask a question on behalf of many of my friends? Will the M+ consider extending its opening hours, for example, to the evening? Because this is just, amongst friends, amongst young people, obviously, everyone, due to the overwhelming demand for come into the M+ and to stay for long hours, I think many people just wish, that we could spend a bit longer or at night at the M+. Like, do we have hours out of the museum and what are the considerations?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
That's something that we identified. And for our members and supporters, our patrons and benefactors, we open an hour earlier on Sunday morning so that they can have a more optimal experience of the current experience of collections that we are using. We have to balance many stakeholders' needs, of course. But what I would say is that we are here to stay.
Yeah.
And just like your home. Visit us anytime. We just need to pre-register in everybody at this point so that we can manage that expectation of the audience experience. So we are calibrating that day. But it's important to think of these as as part of your hour. That's what we have to do.
Tell your friends about Friday nights. I know, it's a very nice place to come. It's not that nice. I will today. I remember when I was young, like when I was at school, like a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I want to work in arts and culture," that this is actually not a very popular choice. But now with the opening of M+ and with the booming of the entire arts and culture industry, I do think that it might start to open up more opportunities for young people and for aspiring, not just artists, but also curators, administrators, and event organizers, etc., to really like build this long-term pipeline for talents in Hong Kong. And so on this particular question, I was going to clarify the question to Pete, like, what would you think about like young people from Hong Kong like pursuing the career and now not just for an entry-level job, but also like in a stable way that they would have room for like mobility and to try different things and to really fully utilize their talents and potential.
Yeah. Well, because I entered the field in a very different time, so my experience is probably not going to be the experience of young people coming into the profession now. For one thing, it's there's obviously I think a lot of people have a very strong social media presence, and they're able to communicate about their interests and their specializations in that way. It has to start from passion and interest. I think there's no replacement for that. There's whatever curatorial course you take or whatever, you have to have a core interest in an area. So that would be my advice, is really to find an area that can sustain your interest, that you're curious about, that can grow, so that you can really be the person that people go to for that topic. And there are many things to choose from, and of course now there's a lot of growth in digital media. But I think to be willing to take on lots of different kinds of positions, to gain a lot of experience in different kinds of institutions and different kinds of roles. Because in that way, you also understand, let's say, operational issues, you understand practical issues like event management. There's a lot of event management in curatorial work, whether you're organizing a public program. Those skills are very important. So those are practical things, which you can only get from trying different positions in institutions. But I think that the core of it, if it's really curatorial work you're interested in, and specializations. But I would say, especially for an institution like us, curatorial is just a fraction of the art hobbies. So there's so many specializations that are in collection management. Editorial work is very important. Learning, so working on public programs, being able to really think about how programming can support different kinds of work in cultural institutions, because that's really where you interface. Exhibition design, conservation is very, very scarce in this region. So anyone who is interested in the arts but is also very good at science can consider that.
and photography. There are so many roles in museums and cultural institutions that can really develop your personal skills. So let's say you're very good on social media, that's also so important for institutions to be able to manage Instagram accounts, manage Facebook accounts, manage online content. So that's increasingly important. So I think that an interest, and then maybe really looking deep within yourself to find, well, what is it that I'm really good at on a practical level, and to channel that can be useful for help you grow.
That's great. I think Tina has just given our young audience some pointers on which type of skills to develop that would be in high demand in the coming years. So that's great. On M Plus itself, like Suhanya, what do you think is the role of M Plus as an institution to do talent development and incubation for the entire sector? And also, like, move it a little bit, like switching gears, but I think it's also kind of in a related point is that how do you see the industry develop to go towards like more commercial, like really become a financially viable, sustainable operation, so that you can also support the big group of people who would like to enter this big industry?
Especially during the start, but I have to say that talent development and capacity building has been part of this Kowloon work from day one. Right? We have had over 90 interns work with us over 10 years. And that's amplifying your more skills. They're all creating skills, but they are interns. And they are highly big competition for them because we have like 15 now. It also sets the stage for really thinking about careers. And it is across the disciplines that Tina was explaining in terms of the archive, the registration department, the design department, the curatorial department, as well as education. So it moves across all of those. It's capacity building is very important because the institution needs to have a future and growth in terms of in relation to the region, there is actually a very clear need for training of industry professionals across the board, especially what cultural space. The historical, the archaeology, aspects of this work is also in the China, has major institutions. But I think not about the extent very good, and that is an opportunity for us to think about. But we are also encouraging universities start to put together programs around vocational courses, whether it's conservation training or art and tech, or what is digital conservation. But all of those things are things that we really want to conduct with a teaching institution, because really we need accredited courses for Hong Kongers to be able to go to and train.
And I know that Helen has actually listened to art tech, but you also have some like quick comments on this.
Well, I think actually, just really briefly, I think actually, as a policy researcher, so we obviously advocate a lot of different sort of policy trends, and art tech, as you mentioned, was one of kind of themes that we had looked at last year. And I actually can see from a lot of arts and cultural institutions in Hong Kong, they've really kind of they're exploring the area. And I would say, I can see from a lot of institutions that they've really kind of grasped sort of the crux of what we're trying to say. It's not just, tech for technology's sake. We're trying to enhance the art in the journey, in the process. So it's not just like a gimmick, like sure, that can be a gimmick as well, but it's more just how technology can enhance the audience perception / the comprehension of what the curators of what the museum wants to convey. And I think I can see that, like the people are starting to understand, you know, the kind of deeper messages or what it can do, what abstract can do as a convergence. So and I think this is a space that is growing, as you know, both Suhanya and Tina mentioned. So I look forward to more, you know, opportunities there.
So the session is coming to an end. I just have a really quick last question because we talked about structure and talent and a little bit on tech. So what are other like critical success factors that you would think that M+ and the whole Hong Kong would need so that will make it a success, like successful city? But it doesn't have to be the responsibility of just M+, but maybe other stakeholders should participate and engage and get involved in the process.
I think of that, I always respond to this like that with the word transformation. The cultural institutions can really be part of transforming the city. Right. It's not, it's much more than a pure transactional. And it's much deeper. And I think it's very, very important for one to bring cultural institutions to be transformed. The sense of community, sense of belonging, and exploration and understanding. There's so much that can happen, and it's also the all the things. So I would say
Well, I can't add to that. But I would just say that people have to use us. You know, we're really a resource for our community. And we've already seen that many professors are bringing their students here, really treating us as a classroom. And that they can maybe just visit one exhibition. But it's being able to have that direct relationship with works by the world's leading artists, designers, to really have that on your doorstep. It's an incredible thing for our community. So use us, visit, join as a member.
Personally, I'm really a patron. I encourage the audience to come and visit after the borders are open again and when the pandemic's over. So I think I really much agree with Suhanya's word, like transformation. And I know that Tina has actually picked a video that introduces one of the key piece of artwork called Domestic Transformer. And I would use that video to close our section. And I think this is really an inspiration. We learned so much, a lot more about the museum. And yeah, everyone should really take the opportunity to come and visit. Thanks again, Suhanya. Thanks again, Tina.
While taking to the sea is one option, architect Gary Chang has found a way to maximize the space in the apartment he grew up in through evolving experimentation.
One of the very special projects in this exhibition is a collaboration we made with the architect Gary Chang. It's a one-to-one reproduction of his home. It's such an ingenious design solution to living in small spaces today that is applicable not just to Hong Kong, but to everywhere else in the world now. So what we loved also about this project was that it's such a Hong Kong story. Gary lived in this space for his whole life. Originally with his two sisters and his parents, so 5 people living in this 32 square meter space with just, I think, 3 bedrooms, and one of them was in fact even rented out to someone at some point. So this was where Gary slept. He slept on the sofa. Over the years after his family moved out, he, as a design student, he started to really experiment with the space himself. So it's gone through many different design ideas. And Gary's idea, I think, is something that all of us can adopt, which is we should really shape our spaces to how we use them. And his principle is that really we live in the city, and so our homes can be very compact, and they can adapt to what we're doing at any given moment. So over here you'll see his bed, and so the bed comes down, and in that mode it's a bedroom with a TV over here, and he has a full-size shower. One of the principles of Gary's design is that everything is luxurious. So even though it's a small space, you can still fit a lot in it. So this is probably a larger shower than any of us in Hong Kong would normally have. It also doubles as a private space for when he has guests and they want to have a private phone call. Behind these walls is a full-size bathtub, so he hasn't scrimped on any of the things that he really wants to enjoy life. And then behind here, I'll just pull this out a little bit for you to see, is a walk-in wardrobe with a mirror, a full-size mirror, so you can get ready at the beginning of the day for your day, and then push back to conceal what's behind. We felt that this was such an important thing to show public audiences, to really inspire them for how you can live better in your own small space. And then to complete the experience of visiting Gary's home, we shot the view from outside his window towards the eastern island corridor, so that you really get the authentic experience.